All right, welcome to today's video lecture on the plasma slash cell membrane. So remember, that's two different words. It's called the plasma membrane, also called the cell membrane, and also called the lipid bilayer because it's made of lipids and it's a bilayer. You can see there's one, here's the phospholipids right here. It's two layers. You got this layer on the outside and then this layer on the inside. So it's a bilayer, it's two layers of phospholipids. Remember, the phosphate is hydrophilic, it likes water, and the lipid tails on the inside of the membrane are hydrophobic, they don't like water. And it's also about cell transport or how stuff gets into and out of cells. So cells, all your cells need to get good stuff into your cells, like oxygen and glucose, sugar, and it's got to get rid of waste products like carbon dioxide. All right, so I'm gonna try to make this as short as possible. So take some good notes. All right, so two broad categories of cell transport, how things go into and out of cells. One's called passive transport, which is where substances move from high concentration to low concentration and requires no energy from the cell. So that's like this guy right here. So this guy's real high on top of the mountain and he's jumping off the mountain. He's going from high on top of the mountain and he's going to move to lower. He's going to fall down low. This guy does not have to flap his wings to fall. He's going to fall all by himself. It will require no energy. So this is a way of remembering that passive transport requires no energy because to go down it doesn't require any energy to go from high to low. Now remember, we're not really in diffusion. We're not talking about changes in elevation, high up on a mountain or low on the mountain. This is just an example to help you remember. What we're talking about is changes in the concentration gradient, like right over here. You can see there's a high concentration of these green balls on the left side, and very low concentration, there's no green balls over here. So through diffusion, passive transport, diffusion is a type of passive transport. These green balls are going to move from high concentration on the left side and they're going to diffuse to low concentration on the right side until they're all spread out, until they reach what's called equilibrium, when all the green balls are equally distributed all in that rectangle. Now, the opposite of passive transport is active transport. So remember, there's three different types of passive transport: diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and osmosis. Where active transport is just active. Now, there are different types of active transport, but we're not going to get into this unit. But look, like this guy that's climbing the mountain, he's going from low in the mountain, he's going to go all the way to the top. He's going to go from low on the mountain, and he's going to go towards high. Obviously, this takes a lot of energy for this guy to climb all the way to the top to go from low on the mountain to high. So, whenever you're moving substances from low concentration to high concentration, the substances do not want to go there by themselves. They normally want to go from high to low. They want to spread out. They don't want to get squeezed together. So, in order to get them to do that, it requires energy. So, if you're in passive transport, it requires no energy because the things are moving from high concentration to low. And in active transport, it does require energy from the cell because things are being moved from low concentration to high. All right, so now I'm going to briefly go over the three types of passive transport that doesn't require energy from the cell because things are going to be moving from high concentration to low concentration. The first one's called diffusion. Diffusion, sometimes called simple diffusion. And the definition is the movement of molecules from where they're in high concentration, a lot of them, to low concentration, not as many of them. Or that's also called going with or down the concentration gradient. So another way of saying going from high to low is going with or down the concentration gradient. And like it says, it requires no energy from the cell. So you can see it over here in this picture. We got a high concentration of these blue dots because look, there's like, I don't know, 15 of them. You got a low concentration down here. There's only two. So these guys are going to move from high concentration to low concentration. And the reason this is just simple diffusion or diffusion is because there's no protein channel, there's no door. These little blue dots are going straight through the phospholipid bilayer. Whenever that happens, that is simple diffusion or just diffusion. Remember, we did it in the Skittles lab. So we put the Skittles, we put some water in here. So we had a high concentration of sugar on the outside of the plate, and the sugar in the dye diffused from high concentration on the outside to low concentration in the middle. You can also do it at home. Spray a little perfume. The scent of the perfume is going to spread out throughout the classroom. All right, so that is diffusion or simple diffusion. All right, and now our second type of passive transport. Last time we had diffusion. Now we have very similar. It's called facilitated diffusion. Definition: the movement of molecules from high concentration to low concentration, same as diffusion so far, but this time it's through special proteins. These special proteins act as doors or channels or tunnels. Still uses no energy, just like regular diffusion. And like diffusion, it goes with or down the concentration gradient from high to low concentration. The only difference is it requires a door, it requires a protein for these things to go in and out of the cell. All right, so here on the left, we have simple diffusion or just diffusion. You have a high concentration of these purple balls up here. You have a low concentration down here. There's only two. Up here, there's like, I don't know, 10. But they're going straight through the lipid bilayer, right through the phospholipids. Remember, here's the phospholipids right here. Here's one group of phospholipids, and here's the other group of phospholipids. Remember, the balloon part is hydrophilic, it likes water. And then the yellow part, those are the lipids, those are hydrophobic. All right, but over here we have facilitated diffusion. It also is going from high concentration, because we have a bunch of these red triangles up here, to low concentration. We only have three triangles down here. The only difference is, look, it needs a door. It needs a protein channel for these little red triangles to come in. So this is facilitated diffusion. The same as diffusion. The only difference, it needs this purple protein channel in order for these substances to cross through the plasma membrane or the cell membrane or the lipid bilayer. All right, so that's facilitated diffusion. And now the third and final type of passive transport is called osmosis. Osmosis, it is the same as diffusion. It is the diffusion of water. Water, also from high concentration to low concentration or with the concentration gradient across a semi-permeable membrane. So diffusion and osmosis are the same thing. But when it's the movement of water, it's got its own name. It's called osmosis. So we can see right here in this pink, this is the inside of the cell. Out here in the blue, that's the outside of the cell. Now these little purple things, those are solutes. Solutes. It could be salt, could be sugar. Now we're going to look. So inside the cell, I see more or I see less solutes. Since there's less solutes, that means there's a greater percentage of water. There's a higher percentage of water. So it's going to be a high concentration of water. It's a low concentration of those little purple dots. But since there's few dots, that means there's more water. Now here, look at all the purple dots. They're everywhere. So it's like a lot of salt. If there's a lot of salt, that means there's less amount of water. So this is where the water is going to move out of the cell from high concentration to low concentration. And this type of solution would be called hypertonic. Hypertonic solution. Now over here, you can see this one, it's equal. There's equal amounts. We're going to say these are salt. Equal amount of salt on the outside, equal amount of salt on the inside. So this way, water is going to move in and out of the cell equally. And that cell is not going to get bigger or it's not going to get smaller. It's going to stay the same size. This is called a isotonic solution. And the last one over here on the right, you can see there's a lot of solutes, a lot of salt on the inside of the cell, and very little salt or sugar, or whatever the solute is on the outside. So out here, there's going to be a high concentration of water because there's less salt. If there's less salt, that means there's a bigger percentage of water. Here's going to be low concentration of water. So in this case, the water is going to move into the cell from high concentration to low concentration. And this would be considered a hypotonic solution. Hypotonic solution. And this one, since water is moving in, the cell will get bigger. All right, so that's osmosis. All right, so we went over the three types of passive transport: diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis. You should have some good notes on those. Now here's the fourth and final way things moving in and out of cells. It's called active transport. It's active, it's not passive anymore. So this is going to be the opposite of passive transport because things aren't going to be moving from high to low concentration. They're going to be going from low concentration to high concentration, or you can say going up or against the concentration gradient. So it's going against where these molecules want to go. Everything always wants to spread out from high to low concentration. This is moving them where they don't want to go. So since we're making them go there, it's going to require energy in the form of ATP. Now, you won't really need to know ATP yet, but you'll need to know it later on this semester. ATP is the molecule that can be used for an immediate source of energy. adenosine triphosphate. All right, so you can see over here in this little diagram, we're moving these little blue spheres, these blue balls, from where they're in low concentration, because look, there's only one, two, three. So I know in the picture they're higher up, but we're not talking about higher or lower. We're talking about how much of that substance is there, and there's only three. That's low. That's not that many. We're down here, there's like 10 or 12. So anyway, so this is going to be high concentration of those blue spheres down here. So these blue spheres want to go up. They want to go where there's less of them, but we're forcing these three guys to go down where there's more of them. And that's why it's going to require this orange little blob here, ATP energy. So it requires energy to make this blue sphere go from low concentration and force them in here where there's a bunch of them to high concentration. So that's why it requires energy, because it's going up or against the concentration gradient. All right, so this is active transport going from low concentration up here to high concentration down here, and it requires ATP energy. All right, so that's active transport. All right, so it looks like this lecture went about 11 minutes long. You're probably like, oh, it's too long. You know what they call that in college? Just getting started, just getting warmed up. We got another hour of lecture, but 11 minutes. All right, I try to keep them under 10, but who cares? All right, so it's quiz time. So if you took some good notes, this should be very, very easy. If you didn't, hopefully you have a good memory. Because if you don't get most or all of these questions correct, yeah, just kind of wasted your time. But you can replay it again if you have to. So if you get them all wrong, feel free to replay this video. All right, good luck to you all, and I'll see you next time.